This video is sponsored by Bug Baffler. Hey everyone, Wes here, and I just want to take a moment of your time to talk about a product I care a lot about. Now, if you've ever seen me keeping bees or handling them in any way, shape, or form, you've seen me in a Bug Baffler suit. Now, if you don't know what a Bug Baffler is, it is a suit that is light as a feather and perfect for keeping you safe from insect bites and stings. Now, we ordered 2 of these suits back in 2019, and I still use those 2 same suits to this day, and they are still in great shape. So this is a very long-lasting, high-quality product. Now, my favorite parts about the suit are, it's so light. I mean, you don't even realize you're wearing it, and you know, it breathes really well. It allows air to come in and to escape just fine. You don't cook like you would in a normal bee suit. This suit, it breathes very well. And of course, it does keep you safe from stings. It has been extremely rarely where I've been stung wearing one of these suits. You know, the bees don't really take to it, and you could even say it baffles them to a certain extent. But in any case, it does the trick, and the best part is it's made right here in the United States over in New Hampshire, so you know you're getting something great. And you know, if you're keeping bees or if you just need to keep the bugs out of your hair, you got to get a Bug Baffler. And you need to go to their website and check out all their cool products, and you can even get these suits in white if you want. But the veil is still black, but you can get the suits in white, and they've got all kinds of cool stuff on their website. And I have a special offer for you. If you go to their website and use SecureAcres5 in the discount code section of their checkout area, you'll get a 5% discount on any of their products. I know you're going to be really happy with it. It's a great product, and anytime I'm talking to family or friends, I'm recommending it. So go over to bugbaffler.com and get you a suit today. Good afternoon, beekeepers and bee enthusiasts. How you doing? It's another great day at the farm, and we're hanging out. It's warm outside, but it is very cloudy, so not seeing a bunch of swarm activity outside. Now, you did see those bees coming out of the swarm trap at the start, and we're paying close attention to them. Not ready to say it's a colony just yet because it's kind of a lack of bees, but I thought I saw some pollen going in, so I'm not totally sure, but we're going to pay attention to them over the next few days and see how they are, and who knows, maybe we have our first colony. Time will tell. But in any case, we got a great video for you planned for today, and of course we'll be talking about maintaining good health in the apiary without feeding. So, you know, we hear it all the time these days in traditional beekeeping. You know, you got to get in there, you got to feed those bees, you got to fatten them up, you got to get them sugar water, you got to get them pollen patties and all kinds of other supplements and whatnot. And we're doing all these things to make sure our bees don't die in the apiary, that sometimes we kind of lose track of what's actually necessary for our bees. And today we're going to talk about that you can really get away with a lot without doing any kind of feeding. We've got some good examples for you, and it's going to be a great topic. So without further ado, let's break right into it. So you'll forgive me, I damaged the transmitter to my microphone about an hour ago. I'm still upset about it, but it's not working right now, so I'm just using the standard sound system of my camera. You know, so if the sound isn't the greatest, you'll forgive us. But in any case, I'm getting a new transmitter and should be in the mail in a few days. But anyway, what are we talking about today? We are talking about feeding in the apiary. Now, we all know that in traditional beekeeping and most forms of beekeeping out there, people are teaching that, you know, your apiary will have periods where there's no honey flow, there's no nectar. And during that time, you need to feed your bees, because if you don't, they're going to starve. And you know, your weaker colonies could definitely use it, and so you got to get in there and feed it. You got to get there and feed your bees. Now, you know, what are we talking about for feeding? Well, people are using, you know, sugar water, dry sugar, they're using pollen patties, they're using different supplements and all kinds of stuff, and no one stops to think, you know, does using any of these substances have consequences? Now, if you read Keeping Bees with a Smile by Fedor Lazutin, he talks about how feeding your bees sugar water can actually be very detrimental to their health. And he mentions that sugar, because it is just a carbohydrate, it has no nutrients in it whatsoever, it is not good for the immune system of the bees. Now, normally honeybees will rely on nectar and whatnot, and nectar has all kinds of benefits for them, but if they are just getting a majority of their diet on sugar water, then because it's just carbohydrates and it's not any kind of nutrients or whatnot, it can definitely have an effect on their immune system. And guess what? If your immune system is affected, then your survivability against diseases will be affected. And that's what he mentions. He says bees that are getting fed sugar water all the time, they are not going to do as good against disease. And so sugar water can have a big effect on your honeybees. Now, it's not that crazy to believe, because we as human beings, we definitely try to limit our intake of sugar, and consuming too much, it can lead to weight issues, and I've definitely had an issue with it in the past, but we know sugar is not a very healthy thing, and we should try to limit it as much as we can. But the same thing is true for honeybees, okay? It's not a magical remedy for honeybees, In fact, if they get too much of it, or really any amount of it, it can definitely affect their immune system, make them weak to disease, and then you can have colony loss. So where you tried to save your bees by feeding them, maybe they end up dying to disease a little bit later because their immune systems were not as good, and they just had some issues with that. So you have to understand that, feeding sugar water, while it might be a supplement for the near future, in the long run, it could be very unhealthy for that colony. And, nowadays you're seeing so much people feed sugar water out there. And of course you see a big problem with diseases and stuff like that for honeybees. But then you also see more treatments being sold and all kinds of stuff like that. So, if you get away from the sugar water, it can be a lot better for your bees. And if you want to feed anything, I would recommend honey. But we haven't fed honey in years. We've really gotten away from it, and we just haven't done much feeding at all, and the bees have been just fine, and they've done good so far. So what about other supplements like pollen patties and health formulas and whatever other interesting things people want to put in their beehives? What's the problem with feeding those things? Well, there's a big ideology in beekeeping these days where people are saying, I need to do everything I can to keep my honeybees alive, and I'm willing to do all the mental gymnastics it requires to make myself believe I'm keeping my bees alive. And, they will do daily inspections, they'll treat, they'll feed them all kinds of crazy things, and they're trying to keep their bees alive. And regardless of how much work they do and all the stuff they go through and all that unnecessary stuff, they still lose colonies. And I've seen people that go traditional and they've lost nearly all, if not completely all, of their apiary in a single year. And they've done all the tricks, all the recommendations, and they still lose all their bees. And so, at the end of the day, you have to accept that you are going to lose colonies, okay? Losing colonies is part of being a beekeeper, because naturally bees are going to lose colonies. They can't have 100% survivability, or if they did, they would take over the world and it'd be a big problem. But bees are going to have loss, and that's just how it is at the end of it. If you have bees with strong genetics and they can go out, they can get the nectar, and they can get the pollen, they can do all that stuff, and they can survive, then that's great. And guess what? Those healthy honeybee colonies you have, they are going to reproduce, and they are going to give you more swarms in your area of healthy honeybees with good genetics. Now, if you have bees with weak genetics, and these bees that we're talking about can't even get enough food for themselves, and they need you to feed them to keep them alive, you are not going to change their weak genetics by feeding them sugar water or giving them pollen patties. If they cannot get those resources on their own, they are bound to die at some point. It's going to happen, and you might be delaying the inevitable, but you can't stop it completely. And they are going to die eventually, and it's going to happen. So, we get away with doing no feeding whatsoever in our apiary, and we do just fine. We have honeybee colonies that perish sometimes, but a lot of our colonies survive and they reproduce, they swarm, we catch those swarms, and it ends up working out for us. But we do this with doing little to no work, and part of that is we don't feed, we don't give any kind of supplements, and they do a lot better. And if we have a weak colony that needs our help in feeding, you know, to stay alive, then we believe we let them perish and we let other honeybee colonies that are stronger survive and reproduce. I don't want weak honeybees in my apiary, and I know that's a cruel thing to say, but I don't want weak genetics in my apiary, and I want strong genetics. So we let our strong honeybees survive, they reproduce, they repopulate the area, and everything works out just fine. So, you know, you don't have to think that you have to intervene in your bees as much as you can, because even if you are somewhat keeping them alive for a little while longer, then you are only keeping weak genetics in your apiary. And honeybees are all about survival of the fittest. The strongest colonies survive, and that's why, you know, colonies will go and rob out other colonies if they get the chance or whatnot, because if they feel like they can take that honey, they're going to take it. So, you know, it's survival of the fittest. And we know that we always have the strongest bees in our apiary because we're not going out of our way to give them all kinds of supplements and all kinds of stuff that, you know, they should be able to get on their own. So what I really want to drive home is you can get away with doing zero feeding and your apiary will be just fine. Your bees will do good. You're going to have bees with strong genetics that survive. Your weaker ones will perish, but you're going to have good, strong genetics of honeybees that can collect resources on their own. They can get their pollen, they can get their nectar, and they will be very healthy bees, and you'll be a lot happier because you're not going to have to work as hard in the long run. So, you know, I used to feed all the time back in 2011, 2012, and the bees would still perish. It was a very big issue. We did all kinds of things to try to keep them alive, and they would still die. And it wasn't until we found our natural beekeeping style that we found out we could do very little interaction with them, and bees do great on their own. And they really can do good on their own, and you should give them a chance. So try getting away with very little to no feeding, and we hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, we'll see you soon.